Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of creating the translation app, and in this video we're going to create 2 extra pages and create the navigation buttons up here. So let's start by duplicating this page. So once I click on this page, I could see 3 dots on the side, and then I can duplicate that. And of course, once I duplicate that, also duplicates the code, but we don't need that, so we're going to erase it. Going back to the designer view again. Let's just rename this page, and this is going to be the language screen. This is where we're going to select the language, and that means we also need to change what's being displayed here. So choose a language. And of course, we're not going to need these boxes. I am going to keep, actually no, I do not need this one, but I'll keep it just for the purpose of duplicating one more time. So I'm going to duplicate a second time, and that gives me the 4th screen. So if I just zoom out here, you'll be able to see all of the different pages. So this is, once we log in, this is the translate page, this is the choose language page, and then the last one should be the history page. So I'm going to rename the screen to history screen, and I am going to change this button to back button. Oops. Or button back. And I'm going to change the display message to back. So, and I'm also going to change this one to history. Yeah, so basically what happens here is that when I am on this page, I get to choose a certain language, and so I don't need the translate button. And when I'm on the next page here, which is the history page, I should be able to see the history of all the things I've translated, and once I click back, I should be brought back into the first page, which is the translate page. So in order to navigate from this page into those other pages, I do need 2 buttons, and that's what I'm going to be working on. I'm just going to drag and drop a button. Make sure it's aligned, and I am going to change the color of this button to match this one. So I'll just scroll down to the color right here, and then copy this color code. And so when I go back to this one and try to change it, I can just paste that color and the color would change. And I also want to erase whatever is written there, so that button needs to remove what's written there. And I'm also going to rename this button for coding purposes to language button. So now I have the language button, which I'll add an image to it in a bit, but I'm also going to duplicate that. So just click duplicate, and then you'll find 2 of them now. So now I have the first one, which is going to be the language button, which will take me to this page, and next I need to have the history button to take me to the history page. Yeah, and they both should be empty. I do want to add an image for the user to recognize what this button is. So I'm going to go into the background. We've already selected the background color, but I'm also going to go back to that same feature and navigate to the image section, and then right here, no file source. This is going to display all of the different items that I've already uploaded, and in this case I don't have what I need, so I'm going to upload the 2 images right here, so language and history. And once those are uploaded, it shows assets added. And as we've mentioned in the first video, assets are in this section here. So we could have navigated to assets here and just upload it in this section. And another option is to just select exactly where you want to upload it and then go into the background image section and select where we want. So in my case, I chose this image here. So I've kept the background color and then I've also added this image. And the only way this could happen is if your image that you're uploading has no background. So then you keep the background color that you've selected on Thunkable and then you add on top of it whatever image you've selected. I'll do the same for the other one. And in this case, I'm going to select the history image. And so now I have two buttons that I need to code in order to navigate to these other pages. I'll start with the first one, which is this one. So moving on to the block section, and in the block section I am going to add this one. So when the language button is clicked, I should be taken to navigate to the language screen. And similarly, when the history button is clicked, I should be navigated to the history screen, and so on. So if I try to test that, if I click on that, I'm brought into the choose language page, and then as you can see, I don't have any buttons to return. So let's try it again one more time with the other button, which is the history page. So once I click the history page, I'm brought to the history page. And then when I click back, this we still did not code. So if I go into the history page or the history screen here, I've got the back button. When button back is clicked, I want to navigate to the translate page again. So let's test that one more time. So let's go to, so this is the translate page, moving to the history page, and then if I click back, I am moved back to the translate page. If I want to change language, I am moved to the choose language page. Yeah. So what we want to do now is just build the language page. So we've kept the label here and we've just renamed it to a choose language. What we want to add now is another component on this side, which is simple list. So I'm just going to drag and drop that list. Yeah, so that's my list right there. And up here, I can select the color of my text. And now when I have it in black, I can easily see what's written. And I can also adjust the color of the background here. So you could choose or select whichever color you want. I'm selecting white. I'm just reducing the transparency just to blend with the background. In order to add items, you just navigate to this box here and then you add the languages that you want. So let's say I'm going for Arabic. And once you hit enter, that item is being added here. And when you want to add another language, say French, again enter. I'm also going to add Arabic, French, Hindi, and Spanish. Okay, so these are the 4 languages that I've decided to add. You can add more if you'd like to, or you can add different ones, whichever you like. So for this case here, I've added these languages. Again, I'm just going to reduce the transparency, and now I've got all the languages that I need. Now to code this one, we're just going to navigate into the translate section. I'm sorry, I meant the choose language section, and into the block section. And right here, what we need to do is when that simple list is clicked, when an item in that simple list is clicked. And as you notice, once I drag that block, it comes with two sets of indices or items, which is an item and an index. And what we want to do is, so we're going to set the title label into the index. So let's test this out and see what happens. So if I click Arabic, the index of this one is 1. If I click French, the index is 2. If I click and the index, and so on. And if instead of adding index I choose item, if I go back here, select Arabic, that's set to Arabic, French, Hindi, Spanish, and so on. Yeah, so the value I know is being stored, but I'm going to use index. And then what I want to do as well is create a variable. So that variable is going to store this value here, the label is going to store it somewhere in order for me to use it again in the translation screen, in the history screen, and in the language screen. So I am going to go into the variables tab and I will drag and drop this one, which helps me initialize a variable. And I'm going to call this variable language. Yeah, and then I'm going to go into this section here, drag and drop this one. So what this does is that it initializes a variable called language, and I'm going to have a default language, which is Arabic. Yeah, and the abbreviation or the index for Arabic language is AR. And we know this from this section here. So if I just zoom in, and I do need to switch this to Arabic as well. So by default, AR. So as you can see, AR is the abbreviation for Arabic, and then EN is the abbreviation for English. As you can see here, by default, our application is going to translate the text from English to Arabic, and so we also need to include that in here, because that variable by default is going to be AR Arabic, but it's going to switch into something else later on. So and then we go back down here into the variable, and we do need to set that variable to something, and that is being changed according to what you click. And for this, we need to pull that information from the list that we've created here. So this is the list that we've created, and we need to pull that information from there. So we're going to go into the list section. There it is, list section, and I am going to pull in, what am I going to pull in? This one. So I'm going to drag and drop this in here. Now if I go back into the design section, you can see I have 4 different languages, but in the block section the list has only 2 items. By clicking this plus sign, you can add extra items, and my items here, according to the languages that I've selected, AR, and then French FR, Hindi HI, and Spanish ES. So AR for Arabic, FR for French. I'm also going to duplicate this, and this is the next language, which is Hindi, and duplicate again, and then the last language ES, which is Spanish. So now I've got a list of all of the different languages that I could be using and could be added or substituted into this variable later on when I'm trying to pull that information to switch the language. And as you can see here, I've got this number here, and this number indicates that index of these values. If you remember just a minute ago, when we clicked Arabic, the index up here has changed to 1. When I clicked French, the index was changed to 2, and so on. And that's exactly what we're trying to pull here. So we've got the abbreviations, and we've also got the index in order for this information to be accurate. Yeah? So after this, I do need to set the label titles text, into that variable now. So whatever variable, which is whatever we select is being stored into a variable. Now that variable needs to be substituted into the title here, which will be used into a different page. Yeah, and then once that is done, once a language is selected, I want to navigate back into the translate page. Yep. Okay, let's test this out. So if I click on Arabic, I'm brought back to the translation page, and then let's say I'm going to write hello, and this should translate the message. As you can see, this is gone here, and I've got the message up here. Yeah, so it's working, and what we need to do next is create the items in the history page. Yeah, so we've already added the back button, the functionality of the back button for the history page, to have them here. So to store that, I'm going to go into something called data viewer list. So just drag and drop that in, and I can resize and adjust however I want. And on the side, you can also select how these information or how that data is going to be displayed. And for me, I do want to go for this one. Alright, so this is the layout that I want my information or data to be displayed as. And up here you could see the connect data source. So you have two options. You could either connect your Google Sheets, Airtable, or create your own in the Thunkable database, and this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to name this translation history. Once that is created, I'm just going to remove extra rows that I don't need, and I'm going to rename this columns to input, and column 2 is going to be output, and then I'm going to add an additional column that I'm going to call the language of translation. Yeah, and by default I do want to have a value of, not that it's by default, but it's just the first sentence or the first word that I have translated so far, which is hello, translates to marhaban, and the language is Arabic. And as we've mentioned, we're only using abbreviations for coding purposes. And so I'm just going to add this one and close that. So down here you have to select what each of these items represent, or what they correlate with in the table that we've just created. So my title here, I want it to be the input, and my subtitle, I want it to be the output, and oh, sorry, I think I've mixed that up. Yeah, so my title is going to be input, my subtitle is going to be output, and the text on the side here is just the language by which I have translated. If you do want to add images, you would need to add an additional column there and just attach all of the images there, and they would be displayed here. In my case, I'm just going to leave that out. Yeah, so this is the first item that I'm going to have, and I'm going to move into the block section to code that. The first thing I want to do is make sure that my data box here, or my history here, is being refreshed and updated as soon as I click on translate on the translate screen. And so to do that, I'm going to navigate into this one here, and what I want is where is it? When the history screen opens, yeah, so the history screen, once that history screen opens, I want to refresh that information, so refresh that data. Yeah, so as soon as I send something through my translate block or my translate page, once I click on this, that information I want it directly to be updated into my history page, which is this one right here. Go to the translate screen here and get this one. When the translate screen opens, once this translate screen opens, we need to create a new row. So create a new row into that database that we've just created. And the values here that we need to add are, so we do need the text input, we do need the output, and we also do need the variable, which is the language, and language will always remain variable due to the fact that it's changing according to what the user chooses. And once these items are all obtained, we do need to set the label output to nothing. Yeah, and that's it.